Truth, justice, and the National Football Show. Big Sills here to tell you the way it is, not the way it isn't. Welcome aboard here with us here on this Football Monday. Excuse me for a second because I have to put my Clark Kent glasses on again because some of you can't handle Superman. So what we'll do is we're going to tell you exactly what we saw in that game, that the Eagles allowed a underachieving Packer team to come back in and make it an uncomfortable football game. Some of the takeaways. By the way, please hit the like button. I think you're going to be shocked with some of the things that I'll say here today. Let me start it with Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon plays 60 minutes of prevent football. Funny because Xander asked me this question. Sills, are we wrong? Maybe this is the reason why Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie wanted to go in a different direction from Doug Peterson and Jim Schwartz, is because of the mentality that is now in the building at the NovaCare Center. Defense today is completely different than it was, say, 15 years ago. Hell, maybe even 10 years ago. Hell, maybe even 5 years ago. You can't play the game like you did. And I think people who cover the sport have to adjust to it. That includes me. I think the offense, we're starting to see more quarterbacks come out of college like Tommy Frazier and Charlie Ward and guys like that, Vince Young, than ever before. And what I think you're getting is a lot of these analytical front offices now are moving towards that metric. Because of salary cap, you're not going to be able to keep your guys in the building like you did years ago. Anton, you must acknowledge Hurts has beat Aaron Rodgers on his resume. Absolutely. I completely outplayed him. Anton, I'm going to get to all that. Ray, Scott Frost, all those guys who were in college, who the NFL, like Vince Young, look at what Jeff Fisher did to him. They all said, no, this is not the way you win games in the NFL. Well, maybe that's changing. And we're starting to see a little bit of that change with players like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and now Jalen Hurts. Maybe guys like Charlie Ward, JM, would have had an opportunity to be a superstar in the NFL if given the opportunity to play their style of football. Because a lot of coordinators back then would not relent. Okay, so maybe we are seeing that. But I want to give you my takeaways from last night's 40-33 victory for the 10-1 now Philadelphia Eagles. Your special teams is a train wreck. It is time to start putting some of your frontline guys on special teams. I don't care what the sacrifice is. You can't give up half fields 3 times in a game and think that's not going to bite you in the playoffs. Everything we talk about today is about playoff football now. It's not about the NFC East. It's about playoff football. It's about being the best. And your special teams is atrocious. Start putting your frontline guys in there. Start putting players in a position to succeed so that your special teams gives your defense an opportunity to play defense. Especially with Jonathan Gannon's. You can't have shitty special teams and play Jonathan Gannon's style of defense. Bend but don't break. You can't start the opposing team on the 50-yard line 3 times. In playoff situations, that's 21 points. Can't do it. Okay? He can't do it. I thought the new DTs, Joseph and Sue, I thought they were mediocre. I didn't think they were great. Not when you have running backs on Green Bay going for 8 yards a carry. Remember I told you, 3 games we'll know if they're going to be a huge impact. I didn't think they were terrible, but I don't really think they were impactful. Not like they were against the Colts. Now, that may turn around here against King Henry this weekend. But I didn't really think they were that much of an impact. Not at all. 363 yards rushing. Hey, for the record, I think the Philadelphia Eagles have a great running back in Jalen Hurts. He is an absolutely fabulous running back. Fantastic. Fantastic. By the way, he is not on pace for 4,000 yards. We'll get into the numbers and how guys are doing right now with 11 games in, with 6 games to play. And we'll tell you kind of where they are and where I thought they would be. A.J. Brown, kid, clean it up. I know you were sick. I'm going to give you some latitude. But clean it up. You're dropping footballs. You are not very impactful. The last month. Clean it up. Being sick, I get it. But if you step on a football field, kid, no excuses. Get out there and play. Fletcher Cox played better. I thought Fletcher played better. But again, this is what I tell you guys all the time. You're going to get sporadic games from Fletcher Cox. You're going to have one game where he plays really well, and you're going to have 4 duds, and you're going to see another game where he shows again and splashes. But this is who he is. He is not a $14 million a year guy any longer. He's finished as that player. Now, Fletcher wants to come back next year for $2 million. I don't have a problem putting $2 million on the table. 14 and a half is a joke. It's a joke. Now, when you get Jordan Davis back, who's scheduled to come back this week, the depth level of the team with Fletcher, I'm good with that. Not at 14-4. By the way, he should never start down again. Start putting your frontline guys once again on your special teams. You don't have special teams. There's nothing special except for your field goal kicker. On your special teams, there's nothing special about it. All the things that Howie Roseman did, he neglected one part of your football team, special teams, clearly. They're not very good. It'll cost you. Here's what and how the players are looking right now as we're coming down the stretch run of the playoffs here and where they are in their year and what they are doing. By the way, I'm going to get to all your comments here. Jalen Hurts is on pace for 3,900 passing yards this year, 26 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. 105.6 quarterback rating at 67.3% incompletion percentage. Kind of what we thought. In between 37 and 39, somewhere in there. Miles Sanders is really the guy who's having the year. On pace for 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns at 5 yards a carry. That's the most impressive part of this, is 5 yards per carry. A.J. Brown on pace for a career year. 1,284. 82 catches, 11 touchdowns. Not quite T.O.04, but in the room. Devonta, about 940 yards, 935. 87 catches, a lot of wheel routes, 5 touchdowns. You'll have one player, like I said, this year. Now, Goddard would have made it probably 2. Okay, so that's unfair because injuries, but that's part of the game. So you'll have one wideout with 1,000. Unless Devonta picks it up, okay, in light of AJ not having played well the last month. He's still a force on jump balls. I'm talking A.J. Brown. But still has to clean it up. Now for Jalen Hurts. It is not sustainable for what they're asking him to do at 30 carries over the last 2 weeks. Not sustainable. Now, Xander and I had a great conversation about this. Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick got the Super Bowls with that style of play. Michael Vick, Lamar, Josh Allen. These are all running quarterbacks who don't have a very good playoff record and have not won Super Bowls yet. Again, let's do this. Is the league evolving? Is the league evolving? Okay? Is it evolving into this style of play? These quarterbacks have not won Super Bowls yet. Jalen Hurts' style has not won, and there's not a big ceiling. Like, how many people think Jalen Hurts is a 10-year guy? I don't. I want to give you some statistics. In the years that Michael Vick played, he had 1 year where he played every game. Cam Newton, of his 12 years, 5 of them, I believe it was, he didn't play the full season. Lamar has missed quite a few football. Again, I think Lamar going into his 5th year, this is the only year where he's played so far every game. There's not a high ceiling for these guys. Because of why? Well, the style of play. Now, do I think that Jalen Hurts protects his body like Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson was in Seattle? I do. I do think he protects his body more. I think he protects it like Russell did. I think he's very smart in open space. And he is a guy that does not take big hits. So he is protecting himself. He knows the importance of who he is and what he is to the offense. Self-awareness. Something Josh Allen needs about 10 classrooms on when he needs to sit there and listen to people telling him about protecting himself. Okay? Josh Allen plays like Andrew Luck. And Andrew Luck playing in that style, if you want to even call Andrew Luck a running quarterback, because he kind of was, he didn't last. Steve Young was a running quarterback, left to gain concussions. That's what we're talking about here. This is not sustainable. However, is Jalen maybe the guy that changes that? Yet to be determined. And here's something that I keep hearing people say. I keep hearing people say this all the time. Run that kid until that kid can't run anymore. This National Football League. What are you saving things for? It's like having a 1963 split window coupe in your garage and you never drive it. Who wants that? Run this kid. Play this kid. Play this guy as hard as you can, because you never know when that hit's coming. I'd rather have 5 years of Jalen Hurts delivering a Super Bowl than 15 years or 10 years of Jalen Hurts where they tried protecting him, and you guys didn't result in anything. That's what happened in Atlanta, and that's why Vic never won a Super Bowl. Vic was not a successful postseason quarterback. For that matter, no real true running back / quarterback has been successful in the postseason. None of them. Not one of them. Kaepernick, Cam, they got the Super Bowls. The rest of them, they didn't. They didn't. McNabb, later on in his career, stopped running. 85. Beat the same team the Cowboys couldn't. 10-1, baby. Congratulations to you. Well, Jalen Hurts is not Steve Young. Steve Young's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the history of the game. He's not. The defense is still the problem, and your coordinator is still the problem. I think the football team has good talent on it defensively, and now you've been decimated a little bit in your secondary. I don't think you're going to have to worry about that against Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't really throw the ball up that much, plus they were upset this past weekend. 2 weekends ago, Tannehill threw for 331 yards. I don't know. I don't think. Young was nothing without weapons. What a jackass comment. You can't predict injuries. That's why I say play him and run him. That's pretty much it, boy. I'll take 6 years of Jalen and a Super Bowl over 12 years of what? Correct. It's like having a thoroughbred. Run these guys. They pull up lame. It's part of the game. It's part of their style. This is who he is. He is not going to play 12, 13 years. These guys never do. That's been the trend. It's not wishful thinking. Don't go there. It's what the trend is. Cam Newton can't even get a job because of what they've done to him and the amount of pounding that he took. Cam was the MVP of the league. Cam was the MVP. And by the way, Patrick Mahomes is so far ahead now in the MVP race, it's mind-numbing. He's going to throw for 5,500 yards and 45 touchdowns. It's not close. Because that award is a statistical award. Is it fair to have it as a statistical award? No. I'm here to tell you the truth, though. Unlike your cheerleaders in Philly, I'm here to tell you the truth. Is he worthy of it, Hurts? Absolutely. But think in reality, not think in passion. Jalen Hurts is the most important player to his team. He might be. But that's not how people around the league see it. Unfortunately, they're not going to take all the intangibles that Jalen has because, seriously, you really don't have a lot of things going on offensively outside of Hurts right now. Your wideouts aren't really stepping up. You got Goddard banged up. Honestly, you don't really have a lot. Honestly, you don't really have anything sensational right now going on for you offensively. Steven says, keep the MVP. He wants the Lombardi. Well, he also wants to get paid. Look at the quarterbacks coming out of college. There are no more stationary pro-style quarterbacks. I think that's kind of what we're alluding to right here. I think that's kind of what we're alluding to. Is that the new style of kid coming out of college is that mobile guy. You know why? Because you know with a salary cap era, you can't keep everybody, especially when you start paying them dudes. Who would you rate as a better thrower, prime, Cam or Hurts? That's a great question. Who would I take in their prime? Well, Jalen hasn't hit his prime. So I don't know. But Cam early on threw for 4,000 yards early in his career and was putting up MVP numbers every year. Jalen's not putting up MVP numbers, unless you count running and whatever. That's not what media people see. They don't see the running. The only reason that Lamar Jackson won the MVP that year, because he led the NFL in touchdown passes. Because he only threw for 3,100 yards. He didn't have all numbers, except for the fact that he went over 1,000 rushing, and he had the league lead in touchdown passes. I think it was 36. Sills, what's Jalen's ceiling? I think the more he gets reps at his style right now, the only thing that's going to stop Jalen Hurts is injury. He's going to continue to get better. The team around him will continue to disintegrate. Because when you pay them, that's what part of being paid as a starting quarterback is. The team around you gets taken away from you. Unless you're smart about it like Brady was. Remember something. This year and next year, this will be the best that Jalen Hurts will ever have on the Eagles. Because of the money. Facts. Can't keep everybody. And you won't. So this is the best it's going to get with talent around him. That's why his progression and his ability to get better has to continue. And when you start taking components away from them because of salary caps and because of money, that'll be a different thing here. Cam threw with his shoulder. Cam was a good football player. I'm a Cam Newton fan. Hurts is doing everything with the horrible pass protection of the O-line and the wide receiver route running progressions. Right now, the wide receivers are not playing they're not very productive. Here's the numbers. You go down by the numbers here now. Hurts will throw for 4,000 next season. He ain't this year, as predicted. 29 first downs to 19. Third down, they were great because of Jalen, 8 of 15 to 1 for 7. It's pretty good, Jonathan Gannon. Total yards, 500 to 342. I think they could have ran the ball for 475 yards if they felt like it. I have no idea why the Packers got away from it. They ran the ball for 363, which is sensational. You never see such numbers like that in the NFL. 106, that's not bad. That's what they held the Packers to. 50 rushing attempts. Here's something that I got to give Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon a lot of credit for. 50 rushing attempts in a prolific style passing league today, you never see. It's why it's a one-of offense. Nobody runs the ball 50 times. That's 10-1. Nobody. This is like old school Big Ten football. Back with Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler. This is like 5 yards in a cloud of dust. This is not modern football. This is old school football. And it's funny because modern day coaches are coaching this RPO up. No prolific and big time offense in the NFL today at all runs 49 times. Nobody does. I'm not saying it's wrong. You're going to who you are and who your strengths are. I am not. It's not a rip. It's a one of. And you know why it's okay? Because no one can stop it. Why would I do something? Hey, watch this. Running the ball versus throwing the ball. What's a better chance of not turning the ball over? Running it instead of throwing it. Ask Josh Allen and the Bills. What offense would you rather have? Andy Reid's or the Eagles? What's a less of a chance when it comes to turnovers? What offense? The Eagles. The Eagles right now are playing keep away from the opponent. And the best way they can do that is run it. You're going to get a lot of shit for that style of play because it's not sexy. And it's relying on one guy. Because look at the rest of your guys. I'm going to give you examples here. Nobody's really outside of Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is having the best offensive year outside of Jalen Hurts. The rest of them, I'd say AJ too. But he's come back the last month. He's not the same player he was a month ago. That's for damn sure. And other teams are starting to copy. GT, the Bears, I'm assuming you're saying. You throw to score points. You run to win the game. Ray, I don't know if you could be any more simpler than that and truthful. Remember what I'm telling you here. This is an observation by me. This is not me ripping any. Except for your shitty DC, I don't have a problem with what happened. I mean, it was a dominant performance. Jalen Hurts ran for 157 yards. How could you sit here on a Monday and shit on that? I won't. Again, though, here, let's put it all in context here. Hurts 16 of 28. 153, 96-3. If you're going to gauge Jalen Hurts on that, that's not very good. But then when you put the other 157, you're talking about 300 yards of total offense. And you're talking about a guy who consistently moved the stick, especially on third down. But he's a one-man show. He's a one-man show. It's not relying on anybody else. Devonta Smith had 4 catches for 50 yards. High-powered offense? I don't think so. How about this? You have a high-powered player in Hurts. The rest of them aren't benefiting. The only other guy that's benefiting, why? Because you have a run-centric team, has been Miles Sanders. Look at Miles Sanders' numbers. Look at who he is right now. Miles Sanders, I wrote these down here. He's 5th in rushing, 900 yards. 5.1, one of the best in the league, yards per carry. And he's got 8 touchdowns, which I think is 4th or 5th in the NFL. He's the only other guy benefiting from this offense. And, here, let me make sure I underline it, though. And 10-1. And 10-1. It's not a sexy offense, though. On the contrary. But when I can run the ball for 49 times for 363 yards, what's the point? You know, there were times in that game last night, I'm watching them throw the ball, and I'm going, why? Why would you do that? Just to kind of like throw some balance in there. And I went like this, okay, just to throw some balance in there. Okay? Richie goes 26-17 score versus the Cowboys. Richie, where in your last couple weeks did you ever hear me say that Dallas is in Philly's league, except offensively? They're not better than the Eagles. They're not better than them. And by the way, I said I didn't see how Green Bay could win this game on Friday. I didn't think they could win the ball game. Two TDs. Great. He's got 18. He's on pace for about 25 touchdowns. It's kind of what I thought he would be. 3,900 yards. 25 touchdowns. He'll probably improve it by 9 from a year ago. His percentage of completions has gone up. He's improved. And the team's winning. Anybody who thought this guy was going to throw for 4,500 yards was out of their mind with 35 touchdowns. That's not what's going to happen here. It's not even remotely close on what's going to happen. So again, my big takeaway was, okay, I thought the defensive tackle guys, the new additions, I thought they were mediocre in this game. The wide receiving core has to pick it up because of the loss of Dallas Goedert. The offensive line hey, by the way, let me say this to you about Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce, still to this day, all bandaged up and with rubber bands, him getting on that second freaking level, the way he does, I got to tell you guys this. In my opinion, I'm trying to think of the centers in the last 30 years that are better than him going into the Hall of Fame. And if you want to put Bruce Matthews in that conversation, Bruce was more of a guard, but he played center. And then you put Kevin Mawai. Let me say this to you. The center position doesn't have a lot of Hall of Famers. Jim Otto's in there. Mike Webster's in there. There's not a lot of centers that played in pro football that are in the Hall of Fame. This guy is by far, I don't know how he's not a first ballot. This is not going to be a conversation. To me, when his name comes up and they ask me what I think of Jason Kelce, I'm going to go like this. I don't know what the debate is. In my opinion, this guy right here, you can make the conversation. He's an old school Chuck Bednarik. Jason Kelce is an old school Chuck Bednarik. This guy's concrete. He is fun to watch. At such an advanced stage in his career, getting up on those multi-levels the way he does still is unbelievable. Is unbelievable. He is the best offensive lineman that Philadelphia has had. Hey, I know you guys like Jason Peters. He's the best old lineman that I can remember in franchise history. Maybe Brown back in the day, Bob Brown. Okay, but he's the best. The team's been around since like 1930. And 33, 30, somewhere in there. Kelsey's the best lineman you've ever had. Offensively. Best center I have seen in a long time. Head fakes, gets up on, and he's not the biggest dude on the planet. What a great football player. I mean, dude, kudos. He is, without a doubt, a special player. Whoever drafted him should get a raise. Our defense was horrible, but we got the W. It's the style. And guys, I'm going to go and ask you this. I would choose Kelsey over Peters any day. He handled the Packers. Packers D is not that bad. They're just underachieving. John Runyon was a good player. Martell surely was. This guy's something else. Andy Reid got him. Man, unbelievable. He's a great football player. Andy Reid, and just the coaching of Stoutland, too. Best football player that franchise has ever had, offensive line-wise, is that man right there. He is the best at one of the hardest positions to play, center. Jason Kelsey's your greatest. If he is the Reggie White of your offensive line. The things that he does in slipping and scooping and getting up on the second and third levels, running those sweeps like that in year 12, 13, it gives me goosebumps on how great he is. Not good. Not good. Spectacular. I've played against some of the greatest centers of all time. The shit he does. I don't mean to go on this long rant here with this, but offensive linemen don't get enough love. That guy is the Reggie White for the Philadelphia Eagles franchise for offensive linemen. It is a pleasure to watch him play. It's a privilege to watch him play. Most teams beat you one way. Birds beat you many ways. But not in the passing game. You don't have anybody that's playing in the last month spectacular offensive line-wise. I mean, offensive wide receiver-wise, excuse me. Kelsey special. By the way, here's another guy that's going to get love. Hey, Big, thank you. Miles Sanders needs more love. Are you really going to allow Miles Sanders to walk out the building at the end of the year, Howie? Are you really? He is your second best offensive football player right now. He has been the most consistent player to Jalen Hurts all season long, including AJ. And the only reason that he's now in the two-hole is because Goddard is hurt. Goddard was number 2. He's number 1. I'm sending you to Miramar. Some of you would get that. I can't believe what I'm doing here, but I've got to send you to Top Gun. I've got to send you to Top Gun here. Are you really going to let that guy walk out the building? Miles can be replaced? Sure hope so. You got a guy averaging a nickel. 5.1 yards a carry. He's 5th in the league in rushing. He's going to go to the Pro Bowl. He could be a Pro Bowler. He could be a Pro Bowler. I don't think Hurts' style is not a style. That is a style, but still. He goes buck wild. Big. That style doesn't win championships as of today. Could Jalen Hurts change that? Of course. Of course. They're not signing Miles Sanders back. Gainwell is not Miles Sanders. And that Boston kid is a dude. They're good. Hey, but when you have an offensive line like that, can you imagine if you had true talent back there? And I'm not saying Miles is not true talent. I think he is. But can you imagine if you had Dalvin Cook back there? With that old line, you'd have a 2,000-yard rushing. Shit, you had 300 yards with 2 players almost rushing last night against the Packers. Here's JM. Sanders is benefiting from the O-line. So is Jalen Hurts. You can't dismiss one for the other. So is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts doesn't have the same O-line. He's not getting 157 yards rushing. You think Jalen Hurts is getting 157 yards rushing with Chicago's O-line? Not happening. Not happening. You need players around you, my friends. You got shit talent around you, you're going to have shit results too. Jesse, Derrick Henry behind that O-line, that would be scary. That would be scary. Tarkington. I missed the Tarkington one. Eagles should use a second round or a third on a running back. They probably will. If Fields can do what Jalen can, do what? They're not winning. They're not winning in Chicago. We need a running back bruiser for those short gains and red zone TDs so Jalen doesn't have to do the dirty work. Yeah, but I said this at the top here. And by the way, I'm going to get into a topic here in a second. Run that guy. You play Jalen as hard as you can. I'd rather have 5 years of Jalen Hurts, okay, and trying to win a Super Bowl than 10 years of doing nothing and just trying to protect him. Let him play. How many times have you seen organizations try changing players? And it's never benefited. Fields has a busted shoulder to boot. That's the style of play. It never lasts. Hurts is not a 10-year player like that. He may prove it wrong. 30 carries last 2 weeks is not sustainable. It's just not. Even though he protects himself. By the way, it is Mahomes and Hurts, and then it's everyone else in the league for MVP. The gap between 1 and 2 is not as significant as you think. The gap between 2 and 3 is Grand Canyon. Those 2 guys have played the best. They got the best records too, 9-2, 10-1. Blankenship will have Epps' spot. You don't make that play without having good instincts. He also got beat a couple times, Ray. CJ out 4 weeks would hurt. But it would hurt only in the Dallas game, in my opinion. Avonte Maddox is being, I'll tell you what, I thought that Jordan Davis's loss was big, but Avonte Maddox's loss is even bigger. Brother said, Hurts took a couple of hits you don't like to see. Brother, I'll tell you one thing, though. Brother Hannibal, he's pretty smart, though, isn't he? How he protects himself. He's pretty smart. He gets down. He's definitely, someone's taught him the art of sliding. That's something Tua can't. Tua needs to get a page out of Jalen Hurts' repertoire on how to get down. If Jalen isn't going to be a 10-year quarterback, then Allen, that's right, Isaiah. No. Okay, you're right. Okay, I agree. Allen doesn't get down. He doesn't protect himself. He's in the same boat. Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. This is not just isolated to Jalen Hurts. This is the history of that style, is what I'm telling you. That style is not for long. Anton, who's the best quarterback Hurts has beat to date? Aaron Rodgers. It's not close. Allen plays reckless. He sure does. He may have a shorter career than Jalen if he don't keep it smart out there on the field. James says Jalen doesn't step in the pocket as much as I'd like. Tries too much. Hey, James, there were wide open guys that he just took off running. But can I tell you why I think he does that, Jalen Hurts? He would rather take off running, knowing full well that they can't defend him, and it's a lower percentage chance of turnover. And he'd rather have it. Get this. Think about this, James. Instead of throwing that ball down the field to a wide open potential guy that could be tipped or what have you, you know what Jalen's position is? If it's 2nd and 10, he'd rather have it at 2nd and 8 because the percentages are in his favor that that's not going to be a turnover play. He's so smart. Jalen Hurts plays the game as a savant. He's one of the smartest young quarterbacks I've ever seen on that style. And knowing what the limitations are on it. And knowing what to do, when to punt, when to slide, when to have 2nd and 1. How many 3rd and 1s have the Eagles been in this year that they've picked up? 1 billion? Every single time that it's third. How many times do we say this about the Eagle offense? That thing is never 3rd and 10. The one thing that he has done magically this year has kept that 3rd down in short yardage, which always gives you a chance of success when he does that. Maniac says, I'm glad he runs because that Quest fumble could be the reason for our only loss this season. Those are turnover plays, Maniac. That's what I'm saying. He'd rather run the ball because it's a lower percentage of turnover. He's the guy who touches the ball the most of any player on the offense outside of the center. Why not put the ball in the hands of your best player? Why do it in somebody else where you could have a potential turnover? Sills, would you get Melvin Gordon? No. Melvin Gordon is a turnover machine. Why add a turnover machine to the Eagles? Why would I do that? Why would I add a guy who struggles on holding on to the football? I'd rather have Kenneth Gainwell. I'd rather have Boston. The one thing those guys aren't doing is turning it over. KC goes, is A.J. Brown hurt? I don't know. He's had a pathetic month. Turnovers, fumbles, had a touchdown. He's not been very productive for 4 weeks. Okay? He's just not been. He's got to pick it up. Sills, does Rodgers ever play for Green Bay? Does Rodgers ever play for Green Bay again? Depends on how Jordan Love plays the rest of the way out, I think. I wouldn't play him the rest of the way. By the way, one more time here. I'll say this again here. The Eagles special teams, start putting your frontline guys in. Because the guys that you have right now are horseshit. And they're going to cost you a football game that matters. Green Bay should go with Love? Absolutely. Hopefully AJ playing his former team will get him back in his groove. That's pathetic, though. You're playing for a 10-1 football team right now. How does that not get you motivated? Playing against my former team? No, no disrespect, Isaiah, but that sounds like you're talking to a preschool guy. I don't need to be motivated. I'm 10-1. I'm most likely going to have home field advantage in the playoffs. Do I really need concocted motivations to get myself ready to play? I mean, seriously, I'm making $100 million. I'm not saying your theory's wrong. I'm saying, but do I really need to have a guy on my freaking football team that needs to be motivated because he's playing against his former team? You make $25 million a year. Get your ass out there. I'm sick. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Ray's right. The Titans are going to try to manhandle the Eagles. What up, Craig? Hey, I did like the gear low last night. I thought it was good. Here's the topic. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting topic for you guys. Is Jalen Hurts the most gifted quarterback in Eagles history? Now, everyone played in a different era. So I'm not going to go like this. Well, this era here, that they threw the ball 11 times. Cunningham, most gifted. He's only 24. Would we agree? Jaws, Cunningham, Sonny Jurgensen, Van Buren, McNabb, Vick, Wentz. Wentz holds almost all year's single-season records. Thank you, Joyce. Imagine this offense with Buddy's defense. Jalen Hurts, to me, is not Randall Cunningham. Randall Cunningham today in today's NFL would be Patrick Mahomes. I think Randall's more gifted than Mahomes. Horrible O-line, had some good players, but Randall was ahead of his time. I don't think I've ever spoken to you guys about this, but to me, the best quarterback you've ever had in your franchise's history is Randall Cunningham. And I never really thought it was close with anyone else, including Carson. That guy could do everything: run, throw, punt. He was an All-American punter. There wasn't anything Randall Cunningham couldn't do. And in today's NFL, can you imagine him with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and that O-line? Randall Cunningham would be Patrick Mahomes. He'd throw for 5,500 yards. Randall had a gun. Now, maybe I'm biased because I played against him. But to me, the best quarterback, and do I see some of the same traits that Jalen may have? I just don't think he has the arm that Randall did. And he may be as good, but Randall was a big time. And when Randall was in open space running, he was like Lamar Jackson. I don't think you guys really fully understand. When you guys ask me to go, Sills, how good do you think Jalen is? I always revert back to Randall and go, you think he's that guy? Or you think he's Vic? I don't. But there is an intangible about him that puts him in that conversation. Randall Cunningham was special. Imagine if Andy and Randall instead of Randall Cunningham would have won a Super Bowl. Randall Cunningham would have won a Super Bowl with Andy Reid. Romy, Randall was the quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. He was that. That's why when people go, isn't Mahomes great? I go, you had that guy. He was in Philly, but the shitty ownership in Norman Brayman never put enough talent around him because he didn't want to spend the economic money for him. I was asked this question about Jalen. Do you think this kid has a chance to be the greatest quarterback in Eagle history? I'm like, no. No. He could end up being maybe the most accomplished. Maybe the most accomplished. But as an overall threat, Jalen Hurts is not a bigger threat than what Randall was. And I think anybody who's in here now who was part of that era and watched it would agree. Randall was special. If Randall played in the Super Bowl instead of McNabb, you win. Correct. Correct. Can you imagine, though? But what we're doing with Jalen Hurts here, we're doing this with Hurts. We're now talking about Jalen being Pro Bowl, MVP, best potentially in the history of the franchise. What an absolute ascent to where he is today. That common sense conversation that we used to have about whether or not the Eagles believe he's the guy. They're going to look at Jalen Hurts now like they look at Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Has Jalen now put himself in the Lamar Jackson category? Has Jalen Hurts put himself in the category of Lamar Jackson? Like, when you think of Lamar, do you think Lamar's an MVP already? Lamar's already an MVP. Unanimous. Do you put him in that conversation? Bro, an old Randall Cunningham with the Vikings, with Moss, Chris Carter, and Jake Reed, crazy. That dude used to punt too. Ray, he was on the All-American punt team. If Hurts keeps it up, his numbers minus the TD throws will be better than Lamar's MVP season. You're saying minus the touchdown throw numbers of 30. I think it was 36 that year. I think it was 36. Okay. Hey, for the record, I don't know if I said it. I thought Jalen Hurts was undefensible last night. I kidded on my Twitter page. I said, you have the best running back, and he's a hell of a running back, just to kind of prod people. You couldn't defend him last night. Couldn't defend him. Packers had no answers for him. He systematically outplayed. I don't give a shit. Watch this. I think you guys will understand it and appreciate this. I don't give a shit what the record for the Packers was. He was the better quarterback on the field between him and Aaron Rodgers. How many times do you think quarterbacks, when they step on the field, including Dak wasn't the better quarterback that stepped on the field 3 weeks ago in Green Bay? He wasn't. Dak was not the best quarterback. Now, again, it was on the road. Jalen had it at his place still. Dak's got more equity because he's played longer. Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback on the field last night. And we're not talking about Tyler Heineke here, or David Mills, or Sam Ellinger, or Matt Ryan. We're talking about Aaron freaking Rodgers. Broken hand and all, I don't care. You beat one of those guys, that's the most significant personal victory that he's had so far as a Philadelphia Eagle quarterback. That is his personal crowning achievement. It's like when Mahomes beat Brady this year in Tampa. You don't think that matters to those guys? When you get a chance to beat one of those dudes, Rodgers, Breeze, Manning, both. Right? You beat him. And to what Xander and I were saying, when it comes to Jonathan Gannon, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the new style of defense. What did I call it when we opened up the show? What did I call it? 60 minutes of prevent. $60 minutes of prevent. I'm going to throw a stat at you here. National media ranks us over the Cowboys this week. Why wouldn't they, Anton? Anton, anybody who puts the Cowboys ahead of the Eagles, the only team that I could see would be the Chiefs. Outside of that, still, should the Eagles use 2 first-round picks on a D lineman? Edge rusher. Edge rusher. Is Jordan Love the guy after Rodgers? We're going to find out. Guys, I want to throw this number at you here with what Jalen did last night. 153 throwing the ball, 157 yards rushing the ball. Michael Vick had 173 yards and 173 yards passing and running. I remember this game. You guys remember this game in the playoffs when Kaepernick did this? 263 yards passing, 181. I think it was against the 49ers. He did that in a playoff game. No, he did that for the 49ers. I think he did it against the Packers in the playoffs, right? Am I right when I say that? That Kaepernick threw for 263 and ran for 181. And I think he did that against the Green Bay Packers. I think he did that actually at Lambeau when he did that. Lamar Jackson, 236, 152. He did that in his MVP season of 2019. What do all these guys have in common with Jalen? Michael Vick, 173 and 173. Kaepernick, 263, 181. 49ers beat the Packers. Lamar, 236, 152 in 2019. What do they all have in common? Now, one of those guys won significant games at all as a starting quarterback in the NFL. What makes Jalen different? What makes Jalen different than Michael Vick, Colin Kaepernick, and Lamar? And by the way, Kaepernick got to a Super Bowl and won an NFC championship. Why is Jalen different? Probably because his team's better. Michael Vick's team that year was not as good as the Philadelphia Eagles. Kaepernick, that 49er team was pretty good. 263, 181. They beat the Packers that year in the playoffs. I think that was the NFC Championship game. GT, you're not suggesting that Jalen reads a lot of defenses, are you? There's really not a lot of guys out there with big numbers right now. I feel with Hurts, he's the best Eagle quarterback I've ever seen. So mature, so humble. Agreed. Still Jalen Hurts, Michael Vick. Who's a better passer? I think Vick. Vick's a better athlete. What is the difference? His ears is the difference. Milk cartons tomorrow, my friends. 03. How much does the special teams concern you? A lot. That's why I said this. Put in some of your frontline guys. Start playing them more significantly. Why not have the advantage? Why would you put your shittiest players on special teams? It's a fundamental flaw. It's a coaching thing. That's poor coaching. So who's telling you this, Howie? I would look at Howie Roseman and go, you want me to put that guy who's 10 times less of a player in on special teams? Well, that's why you had three kickoff returns of 50 yards or more last night, because you put your shitty players there. Did you not think that was going to be a factor? Stills, are you singing tomorrow? No, I didn't pick the Packers to win. I didn't pick them to win. I said that I'd be shocked if they hung in there and they actually made it a 7-point game. We can't afford frontline guys to get hurt. Then you're going to get hurt on special teams. N'Kobe Dean was spotted. I saw him too. All right, let me take Gary Cobb will join us from Fox 29 at the bottom of the hour, as he always does on a Monday. I want to talk more about the defense. I want to get more into the defense. And some of the things that I think that they're doing that are fundamentally wrong, in my opinion. Okay, I want to hit on that. Do me a favor, guys. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.